This is Christian Gomez with the New American Magazine, and on the program with us again is Heather Hobbs, frequent guest and speaker with Save the One. Heather is currently helping to draft legislation. Heather, can you tell us a bit about the law that you're working on right now with some lawmakers? And we're glad to have you on the program again, by the way.
Thank you for having me again, Christian. So, essentially, what I'm working on in simplified terms, something that came to my attention is that there are women across the country who are going into Planned Parenthood facilities or facilities that have free pregnancy testing that also provide abortion. And within a certain amount of time, 24 to 48 hours, women are having anonymous CPS calls made on them. So I have found that there is this collaboration with women or families who've lost their children temporarily to Child Protective Services or similar uh, organizations. And what's happening is the women are being ordered or required by judges or their social workers to have an abortion in order to get their born children back. And so the law that I'm working on would prohibit that from happening. You wouldn't have a judge or a state agency that could mandate a woman have an abortion. So that's the simplified version of it.
So this law that you're working on would apply to the state of Oregon, right?
Right now, I'm working on Oregon, but I'm also working with people across the nation.
So is this problem then of those that are taken into foster care and then are pregnant and are potentially could lose their children if they don't have an abortion, will lose the children that they have already had. Is that only a problem in Oregon, or are we seeing it in other states too?
So, to my knowledge, so far there are about 17 states that this is an issue in. However, it could potentially be in every state. You know, I'm working right now just to make a law to make it illegal, but there are states that it allows for it in their laws, like Oregon, for example. A social worker here could say that a woman needs to have an abortion in order to get her born children back, and their whole logic is that basically another child is another mouth to feed, is another hardship, rather than, that's an innocent human being who deserves protection. I mean, we both know that abortion is the ultimate form of child abuse. They're ordering this horrific act on these children. So you have these women who are faced with the conundrum of, do I choose between my born children or my unborn child? Do I have to choose? Do I not get my children back if I don't have an abortion? Which is what I personally have been seeing here. I have two women who have had an abortion in hopes that they would get their born children back, and they still don't have their children back. And then I have one woman who is still pregnant, and her risk right now is she is not complying with her social worker's requirements. So they'll take her baby as a newborn at the hospital right at birth. And that's pretty common across the nation. So we are hoping to find some sort of protection for her and get protection for women and families all across the country.
So if this gets signed into law in the state of Oregon or even in other places where such legislation is perhaps being drafted and proposed, it would make it illegal to have a mother whose children have been taken away to have to choose basically between the children that have been taken away and having to have this child that she's pregnant to, whether it would be born or not. So, what is the likelihood that this could actually pass in Oregon right now, though?
So it depends on how it's worded. If you come at it specifically as an anti abortion law, of course, they'll get a lot of rallying and support to fight it. However, I seek to make it more than just an anti abortion law. I seek to make it to where no agency at all, no entity could require a woman get an abortion. This would include, say, perhaps a severely mentally disabled woman who is in hospital care or in a facility like a mental health facility. These places here in Oregon, they can make women have an abortion if they decide that they are not mentally sound or that they are somehow you know, they can take their agency, their choice from them. And so this law wouldn't just be specifically for women who've had their children taken. It would be included in a law that basically would prohibit any agency or facility from forcing a woman to have an abortion.
Has this kind of law been implemented in other states across the country?
I haven't found one yet, no.
So if this happens in Oregon, Oregon might be the first state in the country, if it gets passed, to essentially keep families intact, so to speak.
Yes, it could be Oregon, but like I said, I'm working with lawmakers in Texas. I'm working with lawmakers in Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky. So I have multiple places so far, and I'm hoping to expand to Wisconsin, Ohio. I have another in Michigan, of course. There are other places I'm hoping to get legislators involved, and I have a lot of interest already right now. So Oregon may not get it passed first. It may be one of these other states that I'm helping draft up some, verbiage that fits into existing bills that they're going to present. Because right now we're a little bit late in the year, so they only have so many bills that they can present per session. That is what I'm running into right now with Oregon, is we're trying to find a way to add it into something that's already presented and existing. Um,
So, I'm sorry. So one final question, Heather. What are some ways that you've noticed across the country that CPS or any kind of child protective service agency in various states, that they are encouraging or promoting children that are in foster care to have abortions?
So that's another huge concern for me, and that is something I would like to have included in this as well. Is I'm finding that, well, for example, Oregon, parents do not have to have give permission for their children to have an abortion. My 11-year-old daughter could go to a Planned Parenthood right now if she were pregnant and have an abortion. They wouldn't have to call me. They wouldn't have to have an adult with her. She can do it without any adult there. They wouldn't have to tell anyone. So this is also what's happening with foster children. 15, 16-year-old foster child is in custody. She's pregnant. They're going to take her to have an abortion because they don't want the extra burden of another child, but they also have guidelines and parameters to where they keep it from the biological parent. And this is, again, something that's happening nationally, but specifically in the state of Oregon, they are encouraging these young teenage girls to have an abortion or making them have abortions, and they don't have to tell the parents. And there are ways that they'll help the children lie to their biological parents.
And of course, you want to make that illegal. You
Yes.
hope to make it the law that the parents have to be notified, even if their child has been taken away and is now in the custody or a ward of the state.
Exactly. I don't believe that even if parents have done something to permit their children being taken away, I don't believe that they should be oblivious or, not allowed to know what's happening to their child. I used to be a foster parent in the state of Oregon, and I wasn't even allowed to trim a child's hair, give them a haircut, or take them to get a haircut. Or, you can't take them to get their ears pierced. Those things are not allowed without the biological parent's consent.
Wow.
However, very hypocritical and strange to me that they can, in fact, get an abortion or take them to get an abortion without the biological parent.
So essentially, in the state of Oregon, you can't change the appearance of the child, basically, anything aesthetic in terms of a haircut, having their ears pierced, like you mentioned. That's not okay. But going in and potentially destroying, it is destroying another a preborn child, the grandchild of the parent who's lost custody of the child that you are taking care of as a foster parent. That is perfectly permissible in the state of Oregon.
That is permissible, and it does happen. So I hope that we can not only protect these children, teenage girls. As you and I both know, the increased risk of suicide with abortion is already huge. But once you add in the fact that they are a foster child, they are going through something difficult, they're away from their mom and dad, they potentially have been abused or harmed in some way, or they've moved to multiple homes, a lot of changes, you are now making this such a high risk for this child, this teenager, to kill themselves when you add in abortion into this already big mix of stress that they're going through. So I think that even if there are Democrats that oppose, restricting the abortion, I would hope that we can bring up the fact that this is a mental illness concern, this is a suicide concern, this is really about choice because, I mean, if you're forcing people to have an abortion, isn't that directly against what they claim they're fighting for?
Absolutely. And of course, even if the child that is in foster care should be able to consult with their parents to make that choice because children are not even old enough to fully understand the implications of these kinds of decisions always. And when you have the state being the ones taking care in charge of the child, if they're in the ward of the state, that is, the type of advice they may be getting from the government might not be the proper advice that they should be getting, like from their parents. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We thank you very much for your work in fighting for preborn life everywhere across the country and for bringing and keeping families together. We wish you the best of luck with this proposed legislation in the state of Oregon. Of course, we hope to have you on back again as this law gets not a law, as this proposed bill gets introduced in the state and hopefully becomes law. So, of course, we'll have you back on the program again at some point to discuss further developments with the state of Oregon and other states as these bills progress in their legislatures. Thank you so much, Heather, for being on the program. You take care and stay well. And Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's to you, by the way.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you guys and God bless.